Welcome everyone to the latest edition of the Fireside Chat series. Today I'm thrilled to have Chris Campbell, the head of data and technology at Andersen. Over the past year, we have partnered with Andersen to modernize and reimagine customer and dealer experiences in every way. The man behind that vision is Chris. He's thought this through. He's envisioned this whole thing. So welcome, Chris. Over to you.
Hey, thanks, Vijay. I appreciate the sentiment behind it, but I am definitely not a one-man band. I'm thrilled to be working at a great organization with amazing people, and I include Cognizant in that great organization as we continue to partner and go deeper. So just thrilled to be here today and share a little bit about our journey. We've come a long way, and we got a long ways to go.
Absolutely, absolutely. From what I understand, Chris, you have been at Andersen now for 2 years plus. But what surprised you the most when you actually joined the company?
What was amazing is every person I met was kind. There's just a super healthy culture, and I think that's important as we get into our deeper conversation. I would say on the whole, there were two primary surprises. One was about the industry. I come from retail CPG background, and we can kind of throw a rock and hit a whole bunch of data around the consumer or the retailer. In building products, it's still very immature. It's hard to get that macro data landscape, whether it's syndicated data or really learn what's happening between all the channels. The other surprise was just internally, we have some amazing capabilities, but we didn't have a common framework from which to drive and talk about data and analytics. And so the size that our company is now, it's really important that we're all saying the same thing when we say AI or we say data governance, and that we can do that in a way that ladders to our business outcomes. And so just getting that common framework in place is something we've been working on for a while.
From what I understand, there's been a significant shift at Andersen in terms of at least its data journey, right? I mean, there were isolated projects earlier, and now what I think you have brought in is a very enterprise-wide data strategy and thought process. What are the two or three big decisions which you took, which accelerated this whole momentum?
There's a couple big picture items. The first was our company really clarified its strategy and where we want to go. And I think, again, in our industry, in the complexity of a configure to order, and we happen to have a large process manufacturing base too, as we look at our suppliers and some of the levels of vertical integration we have, getting a really clear strategy and really clear choices as part of that of where we wanted to focus. The second part in service to that strategy was, if you think about building products or just manufacturing as a whole, you think about doing work in your home with construction or subcontractors. I mean, you're generally happy if you can find somebody, if somebody actually picks up the phone, if they actually do the work that they said they were going to do on time and on budget. It's a pretty low bar. And if you look at our other experiences, whether it's an Amazon, a Disney, an Apple, it's an incredibly high, ever moving bar. And so one of the things we've talked about is how do we really embrace customer experience? How do we really change the frame in the building products industry to become more akin to some of those digitally native experiences of what consumers and customers expect? And then this is going to be a super boring answer, but I think it is critical. The leadership support from the board and from our executive teams has been critical. And they've shown some real courage in admitting sort of where they have some opportunities to learn and get more data and analytically inclined. And it's a tremendous tailwind for everything we're trying to do.
I have normally seen in my experience that the people and process alignment part is as important, if not more important. What are your opinion? What are your thoughts in terms of aligning people and processes to turn your data strategy from what was probably a vision in your mind to what it is today?
It's huge. I completely agree with you. And at the end of the day, our talent, our people, it's the most important part of our company. It's what makes us run. It's what makes us differentiate. The other important side of what you said, process, is it's easy to say. It's really hard to do and execute well. And so the first thing we did was really clarify the problems and the opportunities, regardless of where you sat in the organization. We had a little bit of, well, that's IT or that's this function. And it was like, no, let's just look at the problems. And then let's look at our personas together and say, how could we take the best of all of us all together and get after this? And so we spent a good amount of time just clarifying problems. And then from there, before we really started to scale tech, we started to attack with process. Simple example, when you wanted to request access into an analytical warehouse or into a legacy report, it was super complicated and opaque to the end user. So we clarified that workflow. We put accountability in different place. just one pain point that we were able to take away right away. And then we started to build on that so that we could start to work in consistent ways. And again, these are not sexy, wonderful, like cool things. This is like getting Jira at the same level across all of our teams and breaking our work down consistently, roles and responsibilities. And from there, we were able to start to dive into the tech and the capability side and really help advance our business.
Because you make it sound pretty simple when you actually say it, but I'm sure it's not as simple as you make it seem. So I've done this a few times, and I know that this is a problem sometimes, and you need to get the team revved up going. So what did you do in terms of getting the people aligned with the change?
The first thing is we focused on clarity. To use a Brene Brown phrase, clarity is kindness. We had a lot of perceptions and a lot of opinions without the clarity connecting the two. The second part is we involved all levels of the organization. And so we said, hey, let's really look at your work. What's happening? Let's inspect the work. Let's not judge the person. Let's judge how it happened. Let's really understand what's going on and then align on where we want to go. And that allowed people to see our current state didn't have to be criticized. Instead, we could look at the aspirational future state and say, okay, we've made good progress. We're here. Let's not judge the past. Let's focus on the future. That supported by a ton of leadership support and by a lot of continued conversations, rituals, and engagement. It's not a one time exercise. And as soon as you think you have it solved, it will prove to you that you don't. So just a lot of continuing to reinforce, make sure that we could have two-way dialogue and continuing to inspect the work is critical.
Well said, Chris. We maybe shift our focus towards the technology side of things. I don't know whether you saw recently the CEO of Cognizant got rated in the Times 100 for AI, which was phenomenal. So we can't not discuss AI right now. So what strategic focus area are you prioritizing over the next 12 to 18 months to align your AI roadmap with Andersen's broader business goals?
We want to be clear on what AI is. I've probably had 50 conversations this year alone where people have said, we're going to AI it. And I'm like, well, what does that actually mean? What part of AI are you doing? And the second part is we want to crystallize what our philosophy is as an organization. We want to augment our greatest asset, our talent. We don't want to sit here and say AI is going to replace it. We make a physical set of complicated products. How do we do that better? Elevating our experience for both our employees and our customers. And so we really want to align the AI philosophy and approach with our culture and ways of working. We break AI into three buckets or three types. My language, old school AI, because I'm of a certain generation who remembers when data science was all the rage and big data. And we just define that as comp sci meets math meets business context. We think the speed to value opportunity is still tremendous there. Things like demand planning without human intervention, should cost modeling, things like that. And then we talk about agentic and generative. Our biggest opportunities right now is really around commercializing faster. So we are interrogating those three types from basic math, AI, machine learning, all the way through agentic and generative to say, what are the building blocks we could go after to commercialize faster? Things like product data models, getting from CAD to consumption and rendering as quickly as possible. And so very transparently, that's all happening in parallel right now. We're trying to figure this out and we're trying to place smart bets, not for the sake of AI, but for the sake of our broader strategy and in service to those employees and customers.
Very interesting, Chris. And you mentioned about in your language, you think of AI in three ways. We, as a company at Cognizant, we are also thinking of AI in terms of three vectors. We have a three-vector strategy. The one is obviously, the vector one, which is focused on hyper productivity, efficiency. Vector two is more around industrializing that AI, but then the third vector is where a lot of the focus starts getting in, which is the agentic AI. How do you reimagine processes? How do you reimagine dealer experiences? How do you reimagine partner portals, end user, end customer engagement? All that kind of stuff can get reimagined and with agentic AI used well. You also mentioned a very, very important point, which I think is you cannot do AI with bad data. Data has to, you have to spend the amount of effort towards hygiene things, which is get your data strategy, get your data, in shape that because AI is only as good as the data behind it. And there are numerous instances of somebody trying to do AI without having the backbone of doing it and coming out with very varied results. So you also mentioned a very interesting thing about if you think of AI as augmenting the talent and the asset which people have, and most companies' critical asset is either talent or product. In your case, I think the product and talent are both very important. And if you think of AI as augmenting talent, then it's a very different perspective to replacing it. And that's essentially how I think most organizations should look at it. How are you as a company approaching the balance between innovation and responsible AI? Because the one thing which AI does is it makes everything believable, whether it is right or not. So how do you make sure that you tread the balance very carefully?
We're very much figuring it out, and that's one of the places I deeply appreciate the partnership with Cognizant, is because the nature of your business and the amount of interactions you have across the world has helped inform that for us so that we don't have to relearn some of this. Fundamentally, we have a very strong culture, and we believe that everybody who comes in contact with our company should benefit from that experience. And that will be our guiding light no matter what. And so we're really looking as a key input to a couple of our key service and technical partners on how we do this and how we learn from your journey. So excited to continue to do that as we figure this out and scale it as well.
We are as excited, Chris. I mean, this is working with you and working with Andersen has been a complete eye opener in terms of what I think we can do, and I think we are seeing some of those successes in the past few months, but looking forward to a lot more. But you did mention previously about your board sponsorship, your C-suite sponsorship. Obviously, you had that initial sponsorship which helped you get up to speed, but then you have to keep that up, right? How do you translate your technology transformation initiatives into measurable business impact that resonate with the C-suite, the board, all the time, right? Because as the support comes in, but it can also go off if they don't see the technology transformation actually bearing the results or measurable outcomes which they can really hang on to. Because we are all in a business, we live quarter to quarter, we live sometimes month to month. So how are you able to do this so well?
I think I'm still improving on how to do this and seeking feedback. And again, from the support, also getting challenged and coached to do it better, which I appreciate. I also think this is tremendously a team sport now. I don't think there's a place where a CIO or a CDO can go to the board and the team and without having the coalition of the business leader and functional leader support. And I think that also has to be followed by a very clear and simple laying out of the opportunity and the trade-offs. And I think ultimately my role is to do that and have a very strong point of view of where I think the right investment path and execution is, but also be very clear on where the decision rights lay to steward our business. And that's where I think the coalition and the team sport part comes in. I think the other part that we're trying to acknowledge as an organization is technology is everywhere. So I think the legacy expectation of expecting an IT function to do all these things and lead all these things and not to have shadow IT and things like that, I think that expectation is dead. And I think what we have to start to do is federate our practices and our talent very differently and think about our functions a lot differently. And that's why we intentionally refer to ourselves as technology and data. It opens up new possibilities, new ways of thinking about bringing legacy pieces together to drive those outcomes. And I think that's doubly important in manufacturing, where we have the shop floor environment in myriad of complexity from security to equipment to OT. And so at the end of the day, I don't think one position or one role or one function can really drive digital transformation and investment. I think it's much more a team sport, and you've got to have a coalition of partners who are willing to drive it with you.
No, absolutely. Well said. Um, Looking ahead, Chris, where do you see the home construction industry going in the next few years? Right. I mean, you are right in the core of it, right, with Andersen. So where do you see this going, and some of the technology initiatives? How do you see that playing into the trend, which is actually going to happen?
I think if I could answer this, I'd be a lot wealthier than I am. We'd be on a different podcast right now. So I don't know. But I am pretty convicted that our world has probably never been more dynamic and volatile than it is right now. I look at tariffs, I look at geopolitics, I look at black swan events. There are so many uncontrollables, and that forces me back into like what's the true north. And what I do feel confident in is that our homeowners, our architects, our dealers, our builders, they're all going to continue to expect a better and more dynamic experience from us, from Andersen. And I do know that our digital technology and data teams are going to have to continue to evolve and deliver on that experience. And so that's where we're focusing, regardless of what the macro environment does. Between our data bet and focusing on the experience bet, those feel like things that are going to meet our customers in the market in a way that's going to reward us from a business outcome set.
No, I think you're right. I mean, somebody told me this a few years back, and it's also even truer today. Is the pace of technology is the fastest it's ever been, but it's also the slowest it's ever going to be. So it's only going to the whole thing is just going to accelerate more and more as we go. So I mean, everything is adaptability, everything is learnability. I was talking to another CXO a month back, and he was asking me as to how do you see IT changing, and my answer to him was only two constants is going to be that you're going to have some needs, some requirements, which are going to come from business, and then you have to deliver a successful outcome. Everything else in between is going to completely change. Do you agree to that point of view? I mean, do you see the way IT does stuff, right? Be it projects, be it support, be it transformations changing completely with the advent of AI, vibe coding, and all these new technologies?
I have a fairly controversial or potentially controversial point of view here, which is I actually think the classic enterprise IT function of the last 30 years is ready for retirement, or more directly, probably has gone the way of the dinosaur. And I want to be clear, I actually think this means IT skills and talent is more important than it's been in the past. And so as we think about technology being everywhere, we're the one set of things like when you go home, there's no IT person. It's you configuring your kids' devices. It's you figuring out what you're going to filter out. It's you interacting with your myriad ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't exist in other functions in the corporate landscape. Nobody goes home, and maybe you do. We don't know each other super well, but writes a cash flow statement or a balance sheet, right? That's the finance function. Nobody does a compensation study like HR. So I think instead of what we've traditionally done in IT functions is fight shadow IT, I
Yeah.
think we have to democratize into organizations, and we have to rethink what the IT function is. Our emerging thinking right now is we want to be technology and data, which means, yes, some things are going to push out, but it also empowers us to take on more accountability. If you
Mm.
think about our business opportunities, thinking about configuration from CAD and model creation all the way through integration and system rip through from upstream to downstream, huge opportunity. If we think about that not as functional lines, but as vertical, how do I drive those capabilities? That's where I think low code, no code tools come in. We can enable end users, but we can do it in a way that scales.
Yeah.
And so I think our opportunity is to really rethink technology and data, the organization, the corporate constructs, especially in manufacturing and especially on the shop floor.
Yeah.
And I think there's a huge unlock here. It's not going to be easy, and it's going to come back to a lot of people and process. But that's what we're starting to explore and starting to push towards again is how do we empower and get as much as close to our business leaders as possible, but also scale and drive our tech talent and outcomes as big as we can.
I'm excited that you're thinking that way too. Absolutely, I completely agree to your view. This session has been awesome, Chris. I have learned a lot. I'm sure that we will learn a lot more in interaction with you. But I know you're a very busy person, and taking this time off to address the team, taking the time to answer some of our questions. That's all very much appreciated.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I continue to be grateful for our partnership. Looking forward to working with you, Vijay, and I think there are great things ahead for the Cognizant and Andersen partnership.